Welcome. This
For 40 years, I've walked the line between worlds and am well versed in death. But I want to have faith in humans. Give me something to believe in. Earth below me, sky above me, fire within me. Brought to you by UPRN Network. I'm Trish Moe, and this is The Missing Piece.
Sorry about that. All right. So welcome again. Good evening. This is 105.3 New Orleans, broadcasting live and the United Public Radio Network. I'm Trish Moe. This is The Missing Piece. It is Mo Monday, and I want to thank Carnation for sponsoring this hour. Few things that I'm very excited about tonight, real quick. I do have my new YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and everything channel up, where I will post all of my investigation videos, my art, my photography stuff, random daily channelings, things like that. If you're interested, that is Te Amo Trishmo on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you find any of my other links. TEAMO Trishmo. So that's exciting. I also am so excited. I listened to it this weekend, and it just brought back a lot of experiences. I want to thank XV Planis for allowing me to join them again at the Sally House. They just released part 4 of a series regarding that and interviewed me. And that was released this past week. So that can be found at XEXV Planis, Planis. I just love Flood and his crew. They're huge part of this journey I've been on since we all met there in Atchison. So today is April 18th. It is National Tax Day. That's not exciting, but most importantly, my guest tonight, I'm excited to welcome uh, Rob Gutro. He is an author, paranormal investigator, and medium with Inspired Ghost Tracking of Maryland. He has communicated with spirits since he was a teen. Um, and he was also a scientist. So he provides specific insight to and scientific explanations about how energy is the baseline for the afterlife and the medium that entities use to communicate. Um, so we will be welcoming him shortly. He also has he's written quite a few books. He has 3 different series, actually. Pets in the Afterlife as a series, part 1, 2, and 3. He also has On a Medium's Vacation series, and we will get into that one more later. And then he also has um, Ghosts and Spirits series, uh, Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking, Kindred Spirits, Ghosts and Spirits Explained, Lesson Learned from the Talking Dead, and you can find all of those on Amazon. So we will be speaking on that. And it's always, from my perspective, it's always interesting to see kind of how, or talk to another medium, and because we all work differently, we all receive messages in unique ways, and that's really exciting to see other people's perspectives. So I'm looking forward to that. His website is www.robgutro.com, and so we will be welcoming him shortly. I'm trying to get better with the chat room, so bear with me. I will I will be paying more attention to that, because I would like to see, as far as my viewers go, I want to see what kind of content you would like me to cover, what kind of people um, you're interested in hearing about, um, as far as me interviewing, or what subject matters that you would like me to discuss as well. So that's something in the near future. You can email me or go to my Facebook page and message me or write it in the comments. So we will get to that, and let me make sure um, Rob has the correct link real quick so we can get him on. In the meantime, so last week on Chasing Prophecy, I had mentioned the sorry, I was messaging him. We talked about all of the UFO reports released, and I quoted verbatim from Wikipedia, which is very interesting. The same thing the news reporters um, mentioned in regards to the newly released UFO reports was verbatim the definition on Wikipedia for MK Ultra from the 70s and 80s trial reports. So that is something we are going to be. We're not done talking about that one. Oh no. I'm going to research that more and get back to you all, because um, I think it's very interesting. I've always said they're connected, um, but that's that's something that it's very oh, let me get him. It's very concerning, to say the least, because who do you believe anymore? Who do you believe? So um, and I also came across so many more things in regards to that. That's actually one of the ways that I was led to Rob, his profile as well, um, as an animal medium. So we will get into that as soon as he gets here. I'm just making sure he has my link again uh, on standby. All right.
Hey, how are
Got
you?
it. Hi, welcome, Rob. Sorry about the miscommunication there. Just trying to navigate StreamYard here. So
No worries.
I was telling I went over your bio and your book series that are out. Um, and I was just mentioning how I love, as a medium myself, I love um hearing other mediums' perspectives on how they communicate with spirits, because we all do it in similar ways, but all very unique at the same time. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting to me to hear other mediums talk about their stories. So welcome again, and I guess, man, I have so many questions for you. um, how did you? I know you mentioned as a teenager. Is that where you, I guess, your story began communicating with spirits?
Yeah, it was a surprising beginning, I guess, as it would be for anybody. But I knew nothing about my abilities at all, or that it ran in my family, until I saw my grandfather appear to me. I was
Oh
13 years
wow.
old. Yeah, um, scared me, of course, and I was home alone that time too, and I ran outside waiting for my parents, and um, my parents and I had a really good relationship, so I was able to talk to them about it. And my mother said that she had the ability; she was afraid to use it. Grandfather had the ability, so I learned a lot that night.
It's interesting that kind of that sounds just like like my own experience. Which we're so. at that point, I know I had mixed feelings that no one in my family had, bothered to mention any of that for most of my life as well. So
Mhm.
how did that, you know, how do you, how did that affect you, I guess?
Well, it really didn't. I kind of didn't pay attention to it afterward because I just got preoccupied with school and working and so forth, and graduating from high school and going to college and so forth. So I kind of tuned it all out. And then it wasn't until 1997 that I went back to school to get another degree, and I wound up living in a house that was haunted.
Was that, what town was that in?
That was in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Okay, okay. So that's, yes, getting back to Kentucky, man. Kentucky's a
Y-
weird state. Love
Yeah.
it, but there's a lot that goes on there. Um, and what happened in the haunted house?
Well, long story short, I thought there was a ghost that was outside. This is when I was really, I knew nothing really about the paranormal. Um, and it turned out that the ghost was inside.
Yeah.
Because there was one particular time. I mean, it woke me up every Tuesday morning at 2:30 in the morning for weeks, by pounding on the door of the house.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, scared the daylights out of me. I was so I had a roommate too. I was actually renting one room from this house, and the other person was the son of the people that owned the house, and we were there living off campus. And he knew that there was something crazy in the house, but he didn't tell me because his other roommate moved out in fear. So
Oh,
yeah.
I can understand that, certainly. How you mentioned that the spirit would bang on the door. Was there a specific, I guess, rhythm? Was there a specific like number of times? Because this is something that just recently has been coming up a lot, actually in my life.
Well, to be honest with you, it was back in 1997, and I wasn't paying attention. All I knew is that
Right.
it was pounding on the back door, and it jarred me out of a sound sleep. So it could have been pounding, a couple of times until I finally woke up. So I don't
I
know if
see.
there was a specific number.
Huh. Because and this has been in on numerous occasions and even other other podcasts and investigator shows and stuff I've listened to. There's a whole theme going on with two knocks, so in the future that's something to, and even in my own life, which is interesting. um
Hmm.
and and I wrote that, I channeled that and wrote it down a long time ago and never knew what it meant, and it was in regards to spirit communication. So um that's interesting.
I think this
um
guy may have been a little more aggressive.
Well, yeah, and these are the ones that do the two. I think for the most part are kind of friendlier. It's more like a "can I
That
come in"
makes
type
sense.
of, not like busting down the door.
Like when you knock on
So,
a friend's door, you
yes,
give
yes,
him two quick knocks, and that's it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this was not
Um,
a thing.
so so from there, how did you? Well, living in a haunted house changes everyone's perspectives because, um, especially your guests, living guests, because no one wants to come over and they're all scared to be there. But how did you go from that to actually kind of embracing mediumship and to where you're at now?
So I was only there a year. All I had to do was
Okay.
finish 1 year because I have two other degrees, so I didn't have that many classes to take. So, and fortunately, I was able to tell the ghost to stay away, and he
Did they?
listened. Yeah, he did. He listened. Um, I told him he wasn't welcome there, so
Oh.
that put an end to that until at least until I moved out. Um, but it wasn't until 2005 when my life was affected by a tragedy, and that is the loss of my puppy Buzz, who died at 7 months old when he was killed by a
Oh.
car when his leash opened.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, and so he blew the doors off my communications with the afterlife. And he proved to me many ways that pets communicate from the afterlife. And in doing so, all the people started coming through too.
Do you think that pets, um, I know you wrote, I believe one of your books talks about that too, are reincarnated people,
Are reincarnated as people?
vice versa, or vice versa, I guess. I guess it could go both ways, but
Um,
that maybe that puppy was someone, maybe a past relative or friend or someone in your life.
Um, I, I've come to find that most animals stay in the animal kingdom and most people stay in the human kingdom.
Really?
I've
Huh.
not run into anybody that's crossed over kingdoms that way. I always joke with people. I said that if your office mate is licking their hands like a cat, then you know what they were before.
Right.
you know,
And the,
and,
and the only reason, I communicate with animals,
Mhm.
living, but I've only encountered, well, a few that have a few spirit animals that have communicated with me. But I always wondered if other people, because my uncle passed away when I was younger,
Mhm.
and when I adopted or rescued my dog I have now, which she came to me in such a weird way, of course, like like they always do, but I kept seeing his name and a dog that looked exactly like her in random places, at my workplace. Like the person next to me had a magnet that looked just like her with my uncle's name on it. And then at the dog park, his name was on the sign there. And it was the exact same breed of dog. And she doesn't act anything like a dog. She's more like a human. But so I always wondered if that, if that could be a possibility or, um, she's very protective of myself and my kids and stuff, so but she's still alive. So
So the dog is still alive?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
It was
Um,
my uncle that passed away
okay.
that I kept, the same name in association with dogs that look just like her. Um, but do you think everyone has I've never talked about that with anyone, has mediumship abilities?
I think we all have some level of ability. It's just that most of us don't trust it.
Right.
I always tell people that really it's all about energy, and
Mhm.
um, I, the average person actually has an ability, and you can test it. If you walk into a room full of people and you'll always feel gravitated toward one person, and conversely, you will feel that you want to avoid another person. And what you're doing there is you're reading their energy.
Mhm.
So, and that's how I like it. I liken that to the abilities that mediums have. We read the energy of people or pets who passed. So we just go a step further.
Now, I know how to. w- Is pet mediumship the same? I guess to explain to listeners, as
Mhm.
far as contacting or attempting to contact specific spirits is it's like there's messengers in their dimension. From my experience, the way it works. But do you go about the same, I guess, method for animals?
So
Because people, it's like it's easier for people to imagine speaking English, or whatever language they speak. But in pet language, like, how do you
that's a really
find your
good question.
target?
So in my day job, I'm a scientist. So it's very important
Right.
for me to explain in terms of science how animals learn and how they convey messages. So I always cite a gentleman named Dr. Stanley Coren, who used to study dogs, and he wrote How Dogs Think and the Intelligence of Dogs. And he concluded that dogs as a baseline, it uses dogs. This also applies to cats and other domesticated animals. But dogs, for the most part, have the intelligence of a 3 to 5 year old child. So
Okay.
that's it. They learn on a lot of different levels. There's instinctual learning, there's behavioral learning, there's social interaction. They learn
Oh,
our language. They read our emotions. We take them to. We do the same thing with human children that we do with pets, really, up until a certain
right.
age. So you take them to the vet, take them to school, teach them how to play well with others, et cetera, et cetera. And my favorite joke is that they don't grow up and marry someone you don't like and move away. So that's my that's my favorite joke. It's a good observation, though, really.
Yes, yes.
Um, so because they learn language and they can see objects and so forth around them,
Hmm.
unless they're blind, but still they can smell them. So the way they convey them to me is either through words they learned or words they hear or images in my head, and that's how I'm able
Hmm.
to convey those. They also convey emotions. They convey pain of passing. If they passed of something, or if something had traumatically happened to them, they'll remember certain events in their life, and they'll show me pictures of that, and I write all that stuff down.
That's interesting. Well, I guess when I first started communicating with animals, I used kind of the same process. As far as I knew, the simplest way, which I would also do, as you said, with a child, is to picture. You know, when I started doing that with my dog, I started picturing. Like going for a walk, taking her for a walk, or things that she would recognize, as
Mhm.
far as, and I don't know what my dogs are are barking at now. I guess he wanted to come join me.
They hear you
But
talking about them.
but yeah, that's similar to how I would communicate with them. So um do you um oh, one of the questions I like is, what's one question that makes you crazy about pets and spirit?
It would be that do animals have souls? That makes me not only crazy, but it makes me irritated.
Yes.
Because every living thing has a soul, and
Mhm.
I think that people who have different belief systems don't even understand what a soul is. Um,
Right.
you know, I I I grew up a long time ago in a Catholic family, and I kind of grew out of it. Um, but they kept saying soul, and they never defined it. And to me, a soul is the energy, the physical energies we have as a living person, coupled with memories, personality, and knowledge of this life. And that all comes together. It coalesces as an energy being, and then we stay here earthbound at a fixed location of our choosing, and that's what I call a ghost. Or we cross over and join the light or heaven or whatever. And I call that a spirit, because ghosts and spirits may both be energy entities, but they behave differently.
Now, this is a recent um eh, theory that's come about with spirits, that even animals, people's beloved pets and friends and family and whatever,
Mhm.
um, that there are specific interdimensional entities that will often imitate um, something, that was close to us, that we trust, as far, especially with children. Have you ever encountered that?
No, I am not. But I will say that I have a theory about interdimensional entities that we can't recognize. Some people call them demons,
Right.
but um, as a scientist, I know that there are now over 5,000 exoplanets that are planets outside of our
Mm-hmm.
solar system that have been cataloged. And we know, using different space telescopes like the Spitzer Space Telescope and the Kepler Space Telescope, that there are many planets that actually have the ingredients to support life. and we would be crazy to think that there is not life out there. And what I think also is, which makes sense to me, is that life, once it passes, it also becomes energy, can travel anywhere in the universe, just like we can. When it comes here, it doesn't recognize us. So it acts like a cornered animal. It
Right.
becomes defensive, if you will. And it can be, it can be angry. It can be defensive and hostile. Um, so that's the way I look at it, as from the scientific perspective.
I agree with that. For many reasons. Now, I think one guest asked, "Do demons live on these planets?" And I think you
Well,
kind of,
again, you're calling them demons. I just, I would just refer to them as uh, extraterrestrials or life on other planets. So yes, yeah, absolutely, they would live on whatever planet that they're born on. Yep.
I always tell people we are all a villain in someone's story. Just think about,
Yeah, true.
when we come up to an anthill, or, when when we're the ones dissecting frogs and biology class and such.
Yeah,
Same
but
concept, same concept.
true.
But yes, I have I've actually studied and somewhat witnessed the portrayal um of them trying to eh, and I don't know which races of extraterrestrials come from which planet and things like that. Um, so I don't know. I can't really differentiate or discern between which ones are good or bad, or I don't necessarily think any are good or bad, and I'm kind of neutral to that. But as far as the ones kind of being the tricksters, um, I have witnessed that. I just don't know how to classify them. So um, now, as far as I guess when you after your experience at the haunted house after college, and you went on to now are you investigating currently on an ongoing basis with the group? What is their name again? I'm sorry.
Inspired ghost
Inspired.
tracking.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes. So for the last 12 years, I've been doing investigations with them, and I'm one of three
Wow.
mediums on the team, and we've done quite a number of investigations of local homes. And there were quite some really shocking investigations that we've been on. One that I wrote about is called the Double Murder Ghost Investigation, where two women, we wound up communicating with two women, myself and another medium, and we didn't know there were two women. We thought it was one in a domestic situation where she was murdered, but it didn't turn out that way. It was two different women, and they were murdered by somebody that was renting in the house.
Huh.
And then all of the things that we got when we were there were later matched to information found in a police report. So everything was confirmed, including the brutal way that they both died, because they shared that with me and with Troy, the other medium.
Have you done any work like cold case investigations or?
Uh, just kind of just one really, and it was actually a personal cold case investigation. It's um, it's about a gentleman that named Ed, who actually came to me
Mhm.
16 years ago, and he came when I started dating the guy who is now my husband. He
Oh,
was my
wow.
he is my husband's late partner, and he helped me solve the mystery of his death.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do
So
you think he also um, led you to your partner? I mean,
he did.
obviously,
He let,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
he let us know
So
that, and that
it
was
it
confirmed
it l-
by two tarot readers too.
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So multiple good things came from that. I love stories like that.
I wrote
Um,
a book about it called Kindred Spirits.
okay, so that is I mentioned that earlier. I was wondering which one that might be in.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
so just imagine that a spirit comes to you all the time that used to date or be your partner's late partner,
yeah.
and is telling you how they lived together, all the secrets and all that. And so there comes it's been kind of funny, but
Oh my gosh, I'm even picturing him now. Like it's so like, it's making me
there were some
emotional.
things
It's
I
so
didn't put
nice though.
I didn't put everything in the book, but there were some things that Ed would tell me, and I would go talk to my husband and I'd say, Ed said that you used to do this, and he would say, stop talking to him.
It's like real live Ghost, like the movie.
It is, yeah, and it's kind of funny, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm a historical medium. So, um, there's and it does get to me a lot of times because we want to help everyone, just like the
Sure.
living. Of course you want to help everyone. You want to help all the animals. You want to help all all the plants, all everything. And there's so many spirits um, from cold cases actually that communicate with me and contact me all the
Wow.
time from all over the world, and it's very um, I have to take a step back sometimes because it can get pretty overwhelming, and seeing all the tragedies and and then on top of that, I know you've mentioned it as well. Um, any one location has like layers of history, obviously. So when people go to a house to investigate, that's especially it's very old.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times, if they're not mediums, I think they're kind of closed-minded in a sense because they're looking for one specific spirit or something there, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, this doesn't make sense, that spirit. But it's because there's so many different ones that come through that have ever lived there. Actually, even living people's energy stays in a house, so, or
Yeah.
anywhere for that matter.
Oh,
So the living
absolutely.
can come through, um and sometimes it is hard to I find it hard to differentiate. I mean, you have to kind of peel back the layers of that, obviously, at each location. Is there do, does your group have a show or a place where we can watch investigations?
Nope. Every investigation that we go on is private. So, and it's to protect the identity of the homeowner and the location so that
Right.
they don't do that. We just have regular monthly meetings, and then we do investigations, and we go to historic places sometimes for people who are learning to be investigators. So,
Nice.
kind of a quiet group.
And now, are there places that you're specifically drawn to investigate? Maybe like historical places?
There are places that they pick to go. As for me, it's just kind of whatever I stumble upon. And that includes whenever I go on vacation too, because when
Mm-hmm.
when I've gone on vacation, I've run into a lot of different people that wanted to talk to me. Um, yeah, I wrote a book about the ghosts of England on my vacation. I went looking. We were on vacation in England, going to Tudor era places. Henry
Oh
VIII.
wow, I would love that. I love that era.
So I knew nothing about it. So my husband is kind of really into the history of that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's his thing. And my thing is the paranormal thing. So he planned the trip, and we went. And wherever we went, I ran into a dead person who had to tell me their story. And so that's in my book, Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation.
That's why, somebody mentioned to me the other day, when I go places, they're like, "You're like the social worker of spirits, Trish," because,
Hmm.
I'm like, well, um,
Well, they can
It just
sense
it
that.
just
They can sense
happens.
it, and yeah, they can sense who could talk to them. So it's not
Yes.
surprising that they want to talk to you.
And another is, so since you knew nothing about the Tudors, you should watch the show The Tudors. I don't think it's on anymore, but it was a series. It was on like HBO or something
Oh,
years
when I
ago.
came back for yeah, when I came back from England with all my notes,
Mhm.
we watched it together, and I said,
Did
"Oh,
you?
that's the guy that I was talking to."
That's funny. So, so leading up to, I know you mentioned you have an exciting, well, another vacation coming up. You're going back to the Southwest, kind,
Yes.
kind of. Yeah, that would be in the Southwest. So
Mhm.
I get confused between the two. I'm in Kansas, and in Kansas, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dodge City, but
I've
that's
been
where
there.
the original Boot Hill and all of that before it was transferred to Arizona.
Mhm.
Um, so sometimes I get mixed up with, and I think the spirits do too, which is funny, because y- we don't really know. Well, I mean, mediums could figure it out, but as far as how many bodies were exhumed or moved or headstones, things like that. So you are going to be going to the Birdcage Theater again, right?
Yes.
And that's
In Tombstone,
in
Tombstone,
Arizona,
Arizona.
Tombstone.
Yeah,
Yes.
site of the OK Corral shootout back in 1881.
And that is going to be Memorial Weekend, right?
Yes, that's Memorial Day weekend, also known as Wyatt Earp Days down there.
Wyatt Earp Day.
Yeah. So
Um, that's super. So so your book is actually in regards to your time at the Birdcage. I assume you've been there multiple times or just the one time?
I've been there twice. So actually 3 times. But the first 2 times I went, my abilities were not functioning, and um, this time I went. It was back in 2019 with a friend of mine who never had paranormal experiences. We went on the ghost tour, so it was a whole different ball game for me. And 2.5 hours later, and 11 ghosts later that I ran into, and he saw two. He actually saw two of them, and it kind of freaked him out. Um, and they're all in the book. um, yeah, so I wrote about them, and I sketched some of them. I think I sketched
Wow.
5 of them in the book.
That's amazing. So the first time I went to the Birdcage Theater, I just like you, I didn't even pay attention to my abilities. Plus, I've had quite a few near-death experiences since then because this was like
Oh
almost 20 years
gosh.
ago, the first time I went there. But it's funny because this was back when people actually got pictures developed. We didn't have smartphones and things like that.
Right.
So so the first picture, evidence picture that that I got of an actual spirit standing next to me was I was standing in the middle of the street. They clear for people that aren't familiar with Tombstone. Everybody dresses in the old West era
1880s clothing.
clothing.
Yeah.
Yes. And they have the dirt streets, and it was almost sundown. We were somebody, one of my friends took a picture of me standing in the middle of the street,
Hmm.
and or like towards one of the corners, some just background. And obviously I didn't see this until we got back home and I got the pictures developed. And in the middle of the street, there's clearly people standing next to me. And I'm like, no, no, and they're very clear in the picture. I wish I could, I mean, find those now,
Wow.
um, but I was like, no, no, I was by myself in the street. There was nobody next to me. And so, which I mean, I had seen and communicated with spirits all my life to an extent, as far as just being aware that they were around me, seeing them. I was still terrified of them at that point, though. So,
Sure.
um, but yeah, that was in Tombstone, Arizona. Was the was the first time that I saw a spirit standing next to me in the street. And the Birdcage Theater has so much. Now there were gunfights and all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff there, right? If I remember
Sure.
correctly.
There were 26 known people that were murdered in the
Whew.
birdcage, and there were 140 bullet holes in the walls and ceiling. Not only
Wow.
was it a live performance, theater performance place, but it was also a ladies of the evening place,
Mhm.
and it was also the site of the longest poker game. And so poker was 24 hours, 7 day a week, 365 day a year profession. It was actually known as a profession back then in the 1880s. Um, so, of course, one of the ghosts that I ran into was accused of cheating and he was shot in the chest. So when I walked down to where the poker game, one the poker tables were in the basement, I was shot in the chest, and I actually fell against the wall. So they were sharing their pain of death with me.
Mhm.
It was pretty dramatic, and I did a sketch of the guy that was shot against the wall, and
Wow.
that's in my book.
Eh, I know there's some mediums that block that out, but that happens to me also. Do you have that happen a lot to you that they will physically it'll physically manifest, say somebody was stabbed in the stomach or something inside and you get that pain just or like being shot. Um, why do you think they just to help us understand where they're coming? Why do you think they do that?
I
Or is
think
it
they do
just
it
an
in a way to
energy?
identify who they are.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I-
So over time, yeah, I've been hit, punched, kicked, stabbed. I
Mm.
felt cancer and heart attacks and
Oh yeah.
aneurysms. When I was in England, I felt a sword go right through my right arm, my shoulder, uh, um, everything and anything. But I just tell them to stop. And
Yeah.
actually, another ghost in the Birdcage Theater shared his pain of being shot in the throat.
Oh wow.
So
That's
that's
not pleasant.
also in there in the book.
Yeah, I get that a lot going through, especially like cemeteries and stuff. I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, somebody got hit in the head," and somebody else, and then it's a very
Mm,
e- especially when everybody's trying to talk to you at once and it's very noisy and you're trying to you're also being hit with their memories, their last memories, before they died. It gets kind of difficult.
so do
Um,
you also avoid like closed hospitals and prisons and battlefields? Because I don't go there.
I wish I did. I so and this is something I struggle with because I try not to. I know it's somewhat of a calling to me. I know that I've probably been closer to the veil than quite a few people just because of my near death experiences. So
Mhm.
maybe that's a gift in itself, that I'm maybe that enables me to kind of handle more or reach more, I guess, like harder cases, I guess, if I was like a spiritual social worker, what I mean, like the more traumatic, because and I do have to step back from the paranormal world. I mean, it's in my everyday life, but as far as from the negative places,
Mhm.
quite often just to stay grounded so it doesn't completely consume me. But I am 100% called to places exactly like that, prisons and orphanages and battlefields and such, because they want me to reveal the truth of what happened, especially if it's
Okay.
something that hasn't been documented throughout history. If it's a new, well, not new, but if no one's ever um, discovered certain things that happened. um, so it is very unpleasant. But even if I don't go there, they come to me and they bring those to my dreams. They bring those to my waking life. It doesn't matter, whether I'm at the location or not. They'll keep bothering me until I actually do go there. So
Wow.
It's kind of a we have I have this love-hate relationship with investigations, and I don't go on very many. I don't. It has to be something, and most of mine are connected, which is why I was telling you about Kentucky, um, which is interesting because many things in the as far as my experience with mediumship, um, that spirits try to communicate with me are related to something that's still going on or to the living, um, which is
Mhm.
important to and I actually I've thought this a lot that this should be we need like an international and there might be some international group of mediums that put these um, kind of put these puzzles together, maybe because we all get different messages. So if it's something that's like a bigger case, um, Atchison, Kansas, have you ever been there?
I have not.
I was just talking about the release of um, I joined XV Planis, who came from the East Coast, and Jill Weaver, who came from Indiana at the time, um, and all complete strangers. But what we discovered at the house had nothing to do with a little girl or a ghost or anything like that. This was a much bigger picture. And I'm still working on this case. It led me to, the orphanage from the Civil War era, the cemetery there that has the unmarked graves and things that are still going on to this day, not only in that town, but in multiple towns. And then it spread from there to other states, other Kentucky being one of them. Um, Also, the East Coast, as far as Massachusetts, Maine, Washington, and this just kind of like blew up to something bigger that all of these spirits there were calling me to for a very long time. And so it wasn't just, you know, the spirit of a little girl that was scaring someone. It was like, hey, somebody needs to pay attention to this. Somebody needs to start digging into this, and so so you can be aware of what's going on. Um, which is one of the things. When I was drawn to, I kept seeing. They kept telling me something about horse races, and I'm like, well, horse races, that would be Kentucky Derby, right?
Sure.
Um, but then that led to the different animal experiments, I guess, going on at
Hmm.
the universities, um, which I still haven't, researched much. Pets are and animals in general are that's very hard for me too. I'm such an empath when it comes to animals, so I can't
Mhm.
like I can't even pass something, an animal that's been hit by a car or something because it replays the entire accident replays in my from the energy replays in my mind.
Sure.
Um,
Yep.
so so anything to do with animals, especially being abused, um, is so hard for me to investigate. But um, were you? I guess did things like that affect you when you lived in Kentucky?
No, not. I wasn't really exposed to it, but since I do a lot of medium readings on weekends for pets, it really affects me. As a matter of fact, this weekend I did one for two dogs that passed away in a fire,
Oh,
and a year ago, and I have to tell you, Trish, I it takes me half an hour to do each reading, and both dogs were communicating with me, and I actually cried really hard for that 30 minutes that I was talking to them. And it's a good thing that I do them in front of my computer and I do them by email because I was a mess.
yeah.
I felt it. Yeah.
I had the most heartbreaking experience. I don't know if I could do it for people on an individual basis like you, so I really admire that. Um, but I was camping at a cabin, in the woods, and I saw a deer, and I had seen them coming in, when we had initially gone to that campsite, and but through through my like in a vision, I saw this deer. So obviously its energy was still, I was still picking up on it from over the hill or however many, a mile or so away. And I see it running and I hear this gunshot and I tried, I was like, oh my gosh, because there were hunters. And I tried to use, even though I was in a place I wasn't completely familiar with as far as landmarks and stuff, but I was trying to use um like the ground and the wind and trees and stuff around me, my surroundings, to communicate with the deer because it was safe where I was at. Where I was at, there was like absolutely no hunting, no, it was a nature reserve. So I was trying to get the deer to go, and most people would laugh at stuff like that. I'm like, you know, um, so we do go to to some extent to for the living as well. Do do you pick up on that in your everyday life when animals, I mean, I would assume you do occasionally, are in danger?
I don't pick up when they're in danger, but I pick up after they're on the
Yeah.
other side. Yep.
I wonder, so you have, as far as pets specifically, you have the three series or the three books in that series, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I have three, and I have two more in the queue, actually.
Oh, wow.
Well, the book three is specifically messages from spirit dogs. So I need to give cat parents equal time. So number four will be messages from spirit cats. So,
What do
but
they warn their parents, their living parents about? I guess I mean, I'm sure it's always different, but have you found kind of a theme of what dogs, I guess specifically, or cats?
so I've been able to communicate with dogs, any animal that is domesticated: dogs, cats, ferrets, rabbits, gerbils, horses, even
Yeah.
birds. Um, and they all have different messages, but the theme of love is always the central theme.
Mhm.
Usually, also the appreciation for the life that they lived. Um, and they do, like I said, they remember things throughout their lives. And often, a couple of things that are important that I get that are consistent is that the pets do not want their pet parent to feel guilty about helping them cross over. In fact, they admire them for it. They admire them for finding the courage to do that. Um, a lot of pets would prefer that their pet parent were there when it happened, but they
Right.
know that some people don't have that courage to be there. They can read that before they cross. So, um, so
That's
those are some of the main
interesting.
messages. Yeah.
And you're referring to like when pet parents, like if they had to put their dog or cat, whatever domestic pet, down due to an illness or injury or something.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what you
exactly what it is.
shoot.
So
I
they
think
know.
most people would appreciate that.
I That's true.
I,
Well,
I mean, being serious, shoot.
I think Oregon and Washington State have the ability to help people pass out of pain.
Really.
Yeah,
I
there's
haven't, yeah, I haven't kept up. I just remember the trial, everybody knows about was it back in the 80s, 90s, how that was such a controversy, I guess.
yeah.
But I mean, I agree. I think that, if anything's suffering, um, no one
No one
no one
should
wants.
experience that. Absolutely. And that's I think that's why the closest thing that people have to that is the do not resuscitate orders
Mm-hmm.
when people are going into like cardiac arrest. But um, I think that we do this for pets. It would be helpful for people. I mean, there are so many. I have lost almost everybody in my entire family, and I know a lot of people have lost a lot of relatives and friends, and some of them have suffered horribly.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine who just passed last week had cancer for the fourth time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And it finally took him. But he suffered so much in the end. And
Right. I often think they, and I mean, I know it's not a conscious thing and nothing, of course, that people would do intentionally, but I think that things like that, and as far as the moral issues of keeping even people alive in that sense, is more
Mhm,
for the living than it is for, especially in cases where it's very terminal, or they're in a coma, or whatever the case, because it's not, I've never spoken to or communicated with the spirit that that was their resentment. That was actually a very positive thing in their crossing over, was that they finally um were relieved from the pain of life. So
mhm.
um
Yeah. My own mother in 2013, she had a stroke and she was she was in a coma for
oh wow.
days and days and days. And my brothers who lived in Massachusetts with her, where she was, and I live in Maryland, so I'm like 400 miles away. Um, they told me not to go up immediately, just take a couple of days and go up because she's still going to be in that coma. When I got up there, my father in spirit came through and he said, "Your mother wants to pass, but she doesn't want anybody in the room. So tell your brothers to get out tonight. Tell them everybody needs to leave," because they were there 24/7 for like 3 days until I get up there. And so we all left. And I told my mom, I knew she could hear me, that dad and her dog were right there in the room waiting. And my mother passed in 5 hours as soon as everybody cleared the room. So,
that's very that's very hard when, especially when it's a parent. um so I am sorry to hear that
well,
story.
I'm gonna leave you on an up note because my mother my mother and father always send signs. So during my mother's wake, when I went up to the casket, um, to just to talk to her, the first thing she said to me was, "Can you darken my eyebrows because they didn't do a good job, and I need to get my eyebrows darkened. Can you just reach in and fix it?" And I just burst out laughing. And so my husband came over. He goes, "Is your mother talking to you?" And I said, "Yes. You'll never believe what she wants me to do." And I told him, and he says, "Don't you dare."
That's something I would do, and my friends all know it too, and family and stuff. They're like, "You're gonna be one that's gonna complain, not about anything else, but the way we either dress you or make your face look something,
Yep.
at your funeral." I'm like, "Yes, yes, I will haunt you for that."
So they can be funny.
That's funny. Well, so do you prefer people to purchase your books on Amazon, or do you have a direct link on your website as well? I know there's different
No, I
preferences on that.
Amazon is where my website takes them anyway, so it's all
Oh,
good.
okay.
It's a direct route.
Okay. And that, if you would like to tell our guests what that is, I also listed it on my Facebook page. And
So my website is just my name, robgutro.com, or you can go to petspirits.com. It goes to the same place because
okay.
many people can't spell my last name because it's
I
such
was
a weird
pronouncing it
name.
wrong. I apologize for that too.
Oh, that's right. Well, it used to be French Canadian, so it was Gutro, and
Okay, that's what I was
then
saying.
it became a massacred French name, so then it became Gutro. So it's all good. So yeah, I'm there on the website. I have a Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I'm everywhere except for TikTok. I haven't quite figured that out yet.
I haven't either. I don't tweet or TikTok yet. So
Well, when you do, you let me know. Okay.
I'm so bad. My listeners are like, "Oh my gosh, it's taken her, a year to get like YouTube." So
I need a 14-year-old to help me through all this.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for being on. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I am going to have to start reading your books because these are they sound fascinating. And good luck your book signing. If you want to meet Rob in person, I guess would be
Yeah.
follow his journey to Tombstone, Arizona on Memorial Day weekend for the release of Ghosts. That's the full title, Ghosts of the Birdcage Theater on a Medium's Vacation.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yes,
So
that's a series. So
yeah, it's a series. There are a couple more coming out in the series. I'm also working on Ghosts of Ireland and Scotland on a
oh
Medium's
wow.
Vacation because I've been there, and there are a lot of dead people talking there, and a couple of other places. So,
That's exciting. I love hearing it, and I'm excited to read about read Kindred Spirits also, um, about your story with Ed.
yes, and Ed wound
Is
up
his name,
actually
correct?
saving us by sending a look-alike when we get lost in England. So that
Wow.
there's so many
Yes,
fascinating stories in that little book.
that's interesting. I will have to read about that and follow up with you on my take on that because that's actually happened to me too. So
Oh, cool. All
so
right.
well, not the whole story, but as far as yes, spirits helping me through the living. um, but yes, we are out of time, unfortunately. Thank you for joining me. Um, I'm gonna have to have you on again in the future because there's just not enough to. I mean, after I go do some reading and researching here.
I would love it. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate the time. And I love talking with you, and I would love to meet you in person if I ever get out to Kansas.
Yes. Well, shoot, now I want to go back to Tombstone, man. If I can get there. I have family there, so
Cool.
um well, next week I'm going to be having UK's former biggest outlaw, Ray Bishop, telling his story of transformation and reform after prison. So that is exciting. That's something I love stories of transformation. So join us. Thank you all for listening tonight. Thank you, Rob, and enjoy the rest of your week. Oh, I will not be on Chasing Prophecy tomorrow, but you can catch my co-hosts at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Gosh, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern Time. Thank you all.